The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show.
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app.
Download now for free.
Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
All righty, we are rolling on a Tuesday with John Adams of the Knoxville News Sentinel joining us. His appearance brought to you by our good friends at Neubert Collision Center. I'll tell you more about them here momentarily. Loaded up on the program today as the Vols open preseason camp on Wednesday. So we'll talk about what position group is the most anticipated, is the most important in preseason camp. Also, what position group do we each individually have the most confidence in? Donald Trump says military generals and for some reason NASCAR drivers should be more involved in decision-making processes. We'll get into that.
No, he says head coaches and military and NASCAR drivers.
Head coaches, and yes, should be. Okay, well, interesting. All right, and lastly, Tennessee has been graced with a couple of fantastic quarterback coach combinations. We've seen, I think, the utmost with David Cutcliffe and a guy named Peyton Manning. What are we seeing out of Nico Maliava and Josh Heupel? Is that potential there to achieve those heights? John Adams, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you. Caleb, how are you? Doing well as well?
I'm doing tremendous, guys.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump into this right now. It's today's tough question, and the reason it's today's tough question as much as anything is because I think that we're all three on a different page for different reasons. Here we go.
Today's tough question. Take a side.
Take a stand.
The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, today's tough question brought to you by our friends at Quality Tire Pros. I'll tell you more about them in just one moment. But I ask you this question. What position group is the most anticipated in your mind, John? In other words, it's got to get better. It's got to improve. It's got to establish itself in order for Tennessee to have a successful 2024.
Well, I think the first position group anybody thinks about in terms of needing an upgrade is the secondary. And I think you can put enjoying linebackers with that. Keenan Pili was hurt last year, didn't play, started one game. That was it. Transfer from BYU. He's got a nice resume. They expect him to be a team leader and sort of a defensive anchor, but he hadn't done anything yet. And the secondary, as always, that's been a concern ever since Josh Heupel came here. Tennessee has struggled in that area, and we'll see if the transfer portal can resolve that problem. But I think that as you go through fall camp and then you get into that first game against Chattanooga, you'd really like to see that group come on strong and develop some solid players because the NC State game could be a challenge in game 2.
Caleb, when we look at the returning starters, there's no arguing with John. That would be a major concern if you didn't know anything about this team. But we've also had Josh Heupel tout this secondary and what they might be able to do. He seems more confident with a bunch of new guys that might have more physical ability than a bunch of guys that he knew weren't that great.
Yeah, far be it from me to take a head coach at his word. But I will say the way Josh Heupel spoke at SEC Media Days last week when he was asked about, or 2 weeks ago now, when he was asked specifically about a secondary, and he goes right into, this is the deepest I've ever had the roster. It seemed like a direct reference to the secondary. I like the transfers they brought in, most notably Jacoby Thomas at free safety and Jermon McCoy at cornerback.
Well, and he even did bring up the secondary unquestioned. So, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I think he's very excited about it to a point that because of the way Tennessee is constructed and because of what they need to make their offense go, I would actually have more concern about the running back situation than I would their secondary, because I'm not sure they have that feature back that can get 20 carries the way a Jalen Wright or Jabari Small did, that can pick up pass pro, because Dylan Sampson can't do that. And if they don't have that, the offense doesn't go. People think about all the big plays of the Heupel offense, but again, those big plays aren't there if they're not sticking to the running game consistently. And I don't know if they have the running back that they can do that with yet.
Well,
John, how concerned are you about those running backs?
Well, I'm concerned about the depth. I don't think you can ever have enough running backs in the SEC. I would like to go in a season with 4 proven running backs. I know that sounds greedy, but we see the attrition at that position. You'll go into a season and see some roster and some depth chart, and it's loaded with good running backs, proven guys, but they fall by the wayside very quickly because of injuries. I view Tennessee's running back situation strictly from a depth perspective being a problem. I think Dylan Sampson will be a star. I think he'll rush for more yards than Jabari Small and Jalen Wright did. I think he has the potential to me to lead the SEC in rushing. He rushed for about 130 yards on 20 carries against Iowa in the bowl game, and I look for him to have a big year. Running backs, if he can stay healthy, but running backs usually produce big numbers in Josh Heupel's offense, and I think Sampson will again. As far as getting back to the secondary, and yeah, Heupel is talking up his secondary, but what else is he supposed to do? He can't say, "Oh my God, I can't believe here we go again." I have nightmares about these guys, and I agree with. I mean, losing 6 DBs to the transfer portal is like addition by subtraction. I mean, how much better could those guys be? Yeah, they're coming back. They're coming back to give up more yards. So I wouldn't lament that loss. And it seems like he got some solid players who've done okay elsewhere, but it's not as though he got a first team all-conference player, a star player in the secondary. I think it's an upgrade, and I think it'll be better. And maybe Ricky Gibson, who's already on the roster, will become a really good player. I don't know about that yet. But at least there's a chance to be hopeful. With that last bunch, you knew what was coming, and it wasn't good. So,
No.
and I wonder, though, with Heupel, and you guys know this, when coaches in preseason are talking about how good, boy, that guy's come on strong. This guy looks better than ever. We're really excited about what he could do this year. Sometimes it's just like wishful thinking, and also trying to imbue the guy with confidence. Like, man, we really need you to get better. Please get better. Oh my gosh, you got to get better. So sometimes it's wishful thinking.
There's a lot to that. It's funny, we haven't mentioned the biggest name in Tennessee's camp in terms of the most anticipated, impactful position, but we are talking about a first-year starter who's only started one game in this guy. Also won games. I remind you that John's appearance is brought to you by our good friends at Neubert Collision Center.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Now, before I jump to that Nico guy, do want to ask you on the defensive side of the ball, how good do they have to be, John? Because we've seen Tennessee win 10 games when their pass defense was rated towards the bottom of the SEC. I want to ask both of you. I'll start with John. How good do they have to be? Just kind of good, really good, dominant?
Well, I'm not suggesting Tennessee needs shut down corners, but what it has to do, I think, in this defensive scheme and with this offense is get some turnovers and make some plays back there. Even in past seasons, we've seen that. We saw that in 2022, where some guys stepped up and made interceptions that really impacted a game. Down after down, they might not have played as well as you like, but they did make plays, and I think that's crucial. Turnovers are crucial. You expect Tennessee to score a bunch of points and in some cases, being high-scoring games. But if you can force some turnovers, yeah, maybe you do give up a touchdown ever so often, maybe more often than you would like. But if you can balance that with making interceptions, I think it could pay off. So, but the bottom line, it just needs to be better overall.
Yeah, I'm with John on that. I think that's the big thing. And even in 2022, I mean, let's not forget, like 2022, they did give up a touchdown every single drive when they faced South Carolina. I still don't think I've ever seen a defense do that. But I think that's why I rated the running backs a bigger concern than the secondary, was because I don't think the secondary has to be good. I think the running backs actually have to be good in this system. And again, John, you did bring up Sampson, but I still don't think you can keep Dylan Sampson out there every down. I mean, you can't have a running back that can't block a guy on a blitz, and Dylan Sampson can't block for anything.
Well, to address that, we're talking about preseason talk. I read one quote from Josh Heupel talking about how Sampson has improved as a blocker. He's confident in him as a blocker. That may, again, relate to wishful thinking. And I know there was that flagrant missed block in the Citrus Bowl. I mean, I'm not sitting there grading running backs on how well they're blocking.
That's what Caleb does.
Yeah, Caleb is there with – okay. I'm not saying he does, but I think he's watching a lot of video. Dylan Sampson, to me, though, has game-breaking potential as a running back. And he might give up some missed blocks, but I think he can really make big plays in this offense. So I might be higher on him than you are.
I think I'm somewhere in between you guys. Work trucks, because Dylan puts in the work. He just can't truck people because he's not that big at just 200 pounds, maybe. But work trucks, all about the trucks. They are actually available trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right vehicle now. Time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down and has all the space you need to carry everything you need to get the job done. Work Trucks is intent on offering you the trucks that other dealership can't. Contract is about time. Work Trucks saves you time with less back and forth. The Napide work bodies installed. They've got the cranes. They've got the dump trucks as well. If you're a contractor, you need Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Work Trucks with an LLC.com with an X. Work Trucks, LLC.com. Clinton Highway, downtown Birmingham. That's Work Trucks. The player that we have not talked about, that we seem to all have a lot of confidence in, is Nico Iamaleava. Curious, do we have too much confidence in Nico? Because a lot of people on the outside would say you're just expecting him to step in and be better than Joe Milton. Well, that was the kind of talk about Joe Milton in reference to Hendon Hooker. John, so if somebody wants to sit on the outside and say you guys are already too confident about Nico, I can't argue with them. I would say based off what I've heard, they're wrong, but I can't argue with them.
No, I go with the eye test on Nico. I think he's going to be a superstar.
Me too.
I'll trust my track record on that. But you go back to last year, and that's a really good point because, again, we talk about preseason discussion. And I remember Tennessee's media day last year, both Josh Heupel and Joey Halsley, the offensive coordinator. Halsley made Joe Milton out to be a high draft pick, high first round draft. I mean, everything. Command of the offense, how he studied, his approach is so much better, all this kind of stuff. It made him sound like just a star waiting to happen. Instead, we got pretty much the same Joe Milton we'd seen in the past, where there were ups and downs, too many downs, really, and he didn't really fit this offense. But again, getting back to the preseason hype, I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of difference in the way they talked about Joe Milton as how they're talking about Nico now. But I've seen both these guys. I mean, I had questions about Joe Milton in this offense from the very first game I saw him against Bowling Green. So, yeah, but I don't have those questions with Nico. And it's not just us. It's not just people in the Tennessee camp saying, oh, Nico's going to be great. Check the Heisman odds. I've seen him as 5th in the Heisman. For a guy that's never been a full-time starter, he has one college start. So that's not coming from Tennessee media or inside the Tennessee camp. That's coming from people who put money on this.
Yeah, John.
You're usually right, too, Caleb.
Yeah, John, I'm with you. And I mean, the Citrus Bowl kind of erased all my doubts. I was sold on Nico beforehand. I'm sold on him now. I was fine keeping him on the bench last year until he got in football shape. I was okay with that. That was the plan. They wanted the smooth transition. One of the only things that's bothering me, Vegas and FanDuel they're putting Nico at 5th at Heisman odds, but they're setting Tennessee's win total at 8.5. If Nico's going to New York, Tennessee is certainly winning more than 8.5 games this year. And I don't understand that because of the fact that, like, they went 9-4 last year and 11-2 in 2022. Most experts believe that, and Vegas too, that with Nico, they're going to look more like the 2022 team. But people think their on-field win-loss record is going to look more like the 2023 team. I don't get that.
That's a good point. I look at it. I mean, I look at Tennessee as I don't see it. I guess I would set it higher. I would say over and under on a win total, I would say 9.5.
Sure.
And here's, go back to last year. Dayton Daniels won the Heisman Trophy. LSU lost 3 games. So, and he was a great player. I voted for him. I mean, and just an incredible numbers he put up. I just think there's a chance if Nico could stay healthy that he will put up dazzling numbers in this offense. And so if you can combine the dazzling stats with a pretty good record, not great, but pretty good, ideally you'd like to see 10-2 to get you to New York as a finalist. But 9-3 could get you there if you rush for 1,000 yards and pass for 3,500. If you do, bottom line, what Jaden Daniels could do last year.
Caleb, I guess I'm going to differ a little bit. I think that Nico could have an incredible top of year and be a Heisman invitee, finalist, whatever we want to call it, actually get the invite to New York. And with an unknown secondary, maybe they could be a 9-3 football team. But I mean, I can see an opportunity for that. But the bottom line is, if you consider Nico at the end of the year one of the top 3, 4, 5 best players, it's hard for me to imagine Tennessee not being one of the top 12 teams making the college football playoff. And really, guys, more like along the lines of top 8, top 6 type of teams, if Nico is a top 3 or 4 or 5 player.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to the consensus is that Joe Milton was not a fit for this offense last year, and that's why they went 8-4 instead of repeat 2022. If that's the case, and if Nico is, the idea that they wouldn't repeat 2022 is just absolutely mind-boggling, particularly when, as we're about to talk about, like, there are some position units that I think we know are going to be better next year. They dealt with some injuries last year.
All right. Do you want to get to the military generals? Is that what we're doing now?
No, let's talk about position units we're most sure about.
Okay. Position units we're most sure about. And that's what I was leading into Nico, now that I think about it. I have a lot of confidence in Nico based off what I've been told, both on and off the record. John, as far as one unit that I believe will be, again, barring injury and all these, that will elevate their play from last year, I think it's quarterback. And I think you can make a strong argument that if it's just based off elevate play from last year, it has a ripple effect and affects more than any other position group on this team.
Yeah, you can make that point. When I think of that as like position group, because yes, with Nico, but what concerns me about Tennessee at quarterback is the drop off from Nico to the next guy is stupendous. You go from the $8 million man, give or take a few million, to a two-time walk-on in Gaston Moore. Tennessee has no real proven depth at that position. So if you lose Nico for a game or so, you could be in big trouble depending on the game. But yeah, from a standpoint of a player and improvement, I kind of agree with you. I hadn't thought about it from that angle. But yeah, because we saw it in the bowl game, and I know the numbers weren't much. I mean, I think Nico passed for 157 yards. It wasn't the numbers. It was just watching the guy play and watching him at the goal line when he's trying to get in the end zone. He scored 3 touchdowns. He just knew when to cut, where to cut, and it was almost like he just kind of eased into the end zone. The way he saw the field and everything. Maybe I'm making too much of that, but I just guys like that can do what he did in that bowl game. To me, he didn't run 80 yards for a touchdown, but he made plays that you think, wow, what a move that was. Look how he saw the field there. And so, yeah, the difference in going from Milton to Nico in this offense, there's a huge difference. So you make a really good point with that.
Which position group can be elite, take the biggest jump? The show represented by Banks and Jones. Don't forget Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win. They go to trial when other attorneys won't.
19 years.
And that's not Banks and Jones. Let's get to T. Scott Jones. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? Banks and Jones, T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. Okay, so mine, it's quarterback, but what position group do you have the most trust in to take another step in preseason camp and be elite, John Adams?
Well, that's the defensive line. I've been covering Tennessee a long time, and you remember with some of the best teams, you go back into the 90s, late 90s, really, the depth in the defensive line was really impressive. I mean, they had backups that ended up playing in the NFL. And I look at this defensive front. I don't think it's at that level, but I think it's the best Tennessee's had in a long time. When you've got a guy like in the middle of the defense, Norman Lott playing as a back, he's listed as number 2 on your depth chart, and you've got a Joshua Joseph as a backup pass rusher, that tells me something about the strength. I think Tennessee can go 9 or 10 deep on the defensive front. That's based on a 4-man front and not having a drop off. And to me, where that pays off so much is late in the game, especially if you've got a lead and the other team is forced to throw the ball and you're a little worried about your secondary, but you can still maintain the same level of pass rush as you did in the first quarter. That to me is really significant. I know those big guys get tired, but I think Tennessee will be able to keep them fresh. I think this is one of the best defensive line groups in the country.
Very strong.
Yep, I fully agree with John. And I'm to the point there, like I'm specific on edge rusher. this is a generational thing. I get it. You know, when y'all covered defensive line was all one unit. I think of the pass rushers as a totally different position group almost than the interior defensive linemen at this point, because they can play off the line of scrimmage. But I'm going to stick with edge rushers because of the most obvious one is James Pierce. And you brought up Joshua Joseph's on the other side. But then there are just guys like Jordan Ross is coming in, who was a 5-star. David Hobbs is supposed to be elite. I mean, they're just loaded with depth to the point where I don't think they're going to take much of a jump. I think they were amazing last year. I think they're just going to look better this year because of the jump that quarterback is going to make, which is quarterback's going to give a big enough lead where Tennessee is going to be able to just unleash those edge rushers. John, with Dave, the comparison I've used is how the Colts were constructed with Peyton Manning back in the day. They said, let's just get Dwight Freeney and Robert Mathis and unleash them because we know Peyton will get us a lead and it'll be obvious passing downs. And I think Tennessee's constructed in a similar way. And yeah, I think they're going to be amazing, honestly.
Yeah, that's a good analogy comparing to the Colts. I remember, I guess Dwight Freeney was probably he had as quick a step off the line as I've ever seen in college. It was just amazing how quick he got off the line. I remember watching him at Syracuse. I saw him in several games, and he could certainly impact a game. And James Pierce, he's so good, I didn't even mention him when I was talking about the depth. It's almost as though I think Tennessee has two players that you really don't need to talk about much. And you go with Nico. I don't care that he hasn't been a full-time starter. I just know the talent that's there, and everything I've heard from people who've observed him day to day and in practice, and then go to Pierce. I mean, in a way, the Citrus Bowl was like a highlight video for both those guys. It was like you watched that game and you said, okay, I don't need to look at those guys anymore. I know what they can do. Forget them. They're over here. They're elite. And so now let's see what the rest of the lineup can do.
I think there's another factor in Pierce that I haven't brought out, but I want to do that right now. Portions of the program brought to you by Medicare Misty. We know how difficult Medicare is. To sign up for Medicare Misty takes care of you. No charge to you. Medicare Misty. I'm going to tell you why James Pierce can be way better this year than he was last year.
19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
You can go ahead and click on that QR code right there for Medicare Misty. Again, no charge to you. Guys, I think part of the reason that James Pierce is going to be more impactful, more statistically relevant, and have a lot more fun is because this offense is going to pull away from more teams if it's running more efficiently. And that's what he wants to do. James Pierce can say, I take a lot of pride in playing the run, but nobody with that sort of pass rushing ability has ever said, I want to play the run. Nobody.
Well, yeah, that's valid. When you think about it, if you force teams to pass, I mean, ideally, I think when you're playing Tennessee, you want to be able to run the ball. So all of this kind of comes together, enhances other aspects. When you think about it, teams would like to come in and run the ball against Tennessee, keep a big play offense off the field. But this defensive front is going to be very difficult to run against. We talk about depth in the pass rush. I think depth in the interior of the line, and maybe with Keenan Peely, the BYU transfer, coming on strong against the run, this team could be very good against the run. So if you get behind and you got to pass more than you want to, as you say, that just gives then you turn James Pierce loose, and he can have some really big games that way.
Yeah, I totally agree, and that's it, and that's what we saw, by the way, in 2022 and actually 2021. If you guys remember, Byron Young became a star out of nowhere for Tennessee because they were so good in the first quarter in 2021 at getting a lead that out of the blue, Byron Young became an elite pass rusher, and he's now in the NFL and has NFL money. And I think he was considered one of the best defensive rookies in the NFL last year. I think you could see that with James Pierce. I mean, we're talking about a guy who, I mean, the last transcendent defensive lineman I watched for Tennessee, and people are going to say Derek Barnett, but I'm going to say it was the 2000 John Henderson season. And I'm like, could James Pierce be that on the edge for Tennessee this year? What Henderson was in the middle in 2000?
Well, I mean, I would settle for Derek Barnett and Henderson. Yeah, he might have been better and had more of an impact. He was a great player. I really enjoyed watching him play because as a defensive lineman, he was one of those guys that never let up. He would chase plays down in the deep into a secondary. So yeah, that's a great comparison. If I don't know if he can have as one player as an edge rusher, if he can have that kind of effect. You certainly are going to have to scheme for him. He's one of those guys that can create opportunities for other players.
Yep. 2 minutes. Hang tight. Coming up, Peyton, David Cutcliffe, Josh Heupel, Nico Maleava. Which would you take? With John Adams, brought to you by Neubert Collision Center and Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
23 F-150 Super Cab 4x4 STX, $45,985. 24 Ford Escape, $30,962. 24 Ford Maverick XLT, $32,720. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
He tries very hard. The Dave Hooker Show.
All I know is when we win a game, it's a team win. When we lose a game, it's a team loss.
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable!
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
I want to thank our friends at Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia, daily updates. You can click on that QR code right there. You'll go to facebook.com, and that'll be Sports Treasures 10. I highly suggest you follow them for regular updates. Also want to thank our good friends at Rick Terry and Rick Terry Jewelry Design, as they have been nice enough to give us an incredible prize. Rick Terry, they want to be your jeweler, looking for the affordable game day jewelry. How about the Fire Opals, a Tennessee tradition? RickTerryJewelry.com. So if you would like to win this John Henderson mini autographed helmet that is right behind me, you can do it. And it's easy to do. All you have to do is sign up for Hooker's Corner. You could be a free member and win fantastic prizes, such as that Garmin watch. It's the Rick Terry's Grade 8 Garmin Challenge Once we hit 8 million subscribers, we'll give a watch away over $1,000. Must be a member of Hooker's Corner and subscribe to the YouTube channel. So keep subscribing. We greatly appreciate that. John would look fantastic in a Garmin watch. He's got the style. He's got the sense. He's got the suave, debonair feel. I think John could pull off a Garmin watch. Plus, he gets lost a lot, and they can help you with that.
He's got a built-in compass.
It's a Garmin. It'll tell you where you are.
I tried to follow the. I tried to figure out where the North Star was. Not one night. I was so lost in the backwoods of Louisiana. There were no road signs. I was looking for the North Star.
John, I've never admitted to you, but I did that in leaving Auburn, and I was so distressed that I pulled over and had myself a little cry. It's pretty bad, isn't it? All right, Caleb, take me somewhere else, and that is you had a question before the program. What's the better quarterback coach duo? Peyton Manning, David Cutcliffe, Josh Heupel, Nico Iamaleava. First of all, I ask you, Caleb, what made this creep into your noggin?
Well, obviously, as of right now, I mean, for a career, you're taking Peyton Manning over Nico Iamaleava. But I went back and thought about it, and I thought, Peyton, David Cutcliffe versus Heupel, Nico Iamaleava. The Peyton Cutcliffe combo had only one great year and two good years in 95 and 96, and then one great year in 97 where Peyton shattered every record. Like, I can't argue with that. But then I thought...
So we're not giving any credit. I just want to make sure. We're not giving any credit in this debate with Cutcliffe and what he did with Eli or the Daniel Brown kid. This is Daniel Jones, him too. But just those two guys, right?
Yes, just Cutcliffe and Manning.
Okay.
And I thought, who would actually be better for the college game? Now, because Cutcliffe, I give him all the credit in the world for developing Manning, for coaching him up. But, I mean, schematically, I don't think he put Peyton in a position to set every record known to man. I think Peyton mostly did that because he's Peyton. And I feel like Heupel's offensive system schematically puts Nico in position to literally set every record potentially known to man as a quarterback.
John, here would be my immediate answer. Peyton and David Cutcliffe deserve much more credit because the freeze plays that I think Caleb was kind of referring to, where you have two plays called at the line of scrimmage and you scream Omaha to go to the other one. That's something that every offense does now. Every offense didn't do that. So Josh Heupel's offense does that now. So to me, I would give credit to the guys who did it first.
Yeah, well, we got to keep this in context. In no way, shape, or form are we saying Nico is going to be better than Peyton Manning.
Right.
We're just, and I think this is a very good talking point that Caleb came up with. I look at the Manning-Cutcliffe combination a little differently. Tennessee's basic offense, which really didn't change drastically from Johnny Majors to Philip Fulmer, was really built on balance, and it featured a lot of good running backs from time to time. I thought David Cutcliffe really helped Peyton's stats by accentuating the pass more than he did with any other quarterbacks. Tennessee was more pass first under David Cutcliffe in Manning's 95 through 97, I thought. And Peyton put up some really good numbers. However, when you talk about the college game, as good as Manning and Cutcliffe were together, Tennessee didn't average 46.1 points per game like it did under Josh Heupel in 2022. I think the upside for this offense now at the college level is so great because you have again, it gets back to Nico being so well suited for this offense. And I just think he has a chance to pile up bigger numbers than Peyton could have under David Cutcliffe, or Peyton did under David Cutcliffe.
Okay. In my opinion, and I think John just shared that, we think Peyton Manning's a better quarterback than Nico, right?
Yes.
Yes, I think that's a fair job.
Yeah, we're not.
I'm not going to sit there and say any quarterback coming in could be better than Peyton Manning.
No,
right.
I know, but people, somebody's going to watch this and say, man, those idiots just said that Nico, he started one game. They already said he's better than Peyton Manning ever was. What a bunch of morons.
Okay, so let me argue this. When I look at David Cutcliffe, I see a guy that did a heck of a job of putting that 98 offense on the field. He said he didn't think they could get a first down in spring camp. So from an offensive mind standpoint, if we're comparing the two parties, are we giving Cutcliffe the advantage over Heupel? Because I believe Cutcliffe could differ more from his core beliefs on offense than Heupel ever could. I don't know that he would ever get away from the wide splits or that he would ever get away from tempo.
Yeah, but I just think what Heupel does, he does so well that I would take him. I just think, look what he did the first season here. He just comes in right away and puts his offense in place, and Tennessee almost averaged 40 points a game. The only reason it didn't average 40 points per game last season, and then that falls on Heupel, of course. He had the wrong quarterback. He just didn't fit this offense. But if he has the right quarterback, he's going to average over 40 points per game. And so, yeah, maybe David Cutcliffe could shape his offense at times better depending on the personnel. But if I'm just looking for who can score the most points year in, year out, I'm taking Josh Heupel.
Okay, let me ask you this, Caleb. I'll start with you. If this offense had to perform with Gaston Moore, something happened to Nico, would they be in better hands with Josh Heupel or David Cutcliffe?
I think that's actually where they'd be even more in better hands with Josh Heupel. And the reason I say it's where they'd be more in better hands with Josh Heupel is oftentimes running a offensive system as opposed to adapting to your personnel. Cutcliffe is an adapt to your personnel type of offensive coordinator, which is great because John knows this. Most of the time a coach says, I'm here to adapt to my personnel, that's because they don't know football and they're just saying what they can say. Cutcliffe is one of the few people who actually could adapt to personnel. But that only works if you have personnel that's good. If you don't have personnel that's good, you have to have a system. And so in that regard, I don't think there's any adapting to Gaston Moore that David Cutcliffe would be able to do. Okay, at that point, you need to have a system, and so Josh Heupel.
I think he'd know how to keep him out of trouble. I think you'd be putting an average driver in a race car right now. You better make sure that you've got that restrictor plate squeezed down.
I wonder how well David Cutcliffe would have done in 1995. If Peyton Manning would have gone down as quarterback. His backup was Jermaine Copeland.
Could have been troublesome.
Yeah, and then a walk-on named Jeremy Bates.
I don't even remember him.
Yeah.
Well, there's no reason you would, but
no.
Look up what he did okay as an option quarterback. He was still a backup, but he went to Rice and played some as a wishbone quarterback. But the thing about Gaston Moore, he's limited in ability, but to Caleb's point, he knows this system inside out. And I think the system is so good, and you've got talent around him. I'm not saying you can win a lot of – you're not going to beat really good teams with him at quarterback. But I think he could be functional in this offense. It would still be catastrophic. Don't get me wrong. It's catastrophic if they lose Nico. The season's done. The expectations are done. But I'm just saying this guy could come out there and not fall on his face.
If he were the starter from the get, Tennessee's more likely Gaston Moore to win 7 or 10 games.
7.
10.
But no.
What is wrong with you guys? He can run the offense.
But hold on, Dave.
You don't think it would be a step up from last year? I'm just saying it. I'm throwing it out there. It would be.
No. What?
Yes.
You think Tennessee would be better with Gaston Moore at quarterback than Joe Milton? Did somebody draft Joe Milton, Dave?
Yes, in the 6th round.
Okay,
He's
how
doing
many?
backflip, so it's just
Okay,
a matter of
how
time
many?
till he's an all-pro player.
How many teams are going to sign Gaston Moore as a free agent?
Well, probably the Patriots when they figure out Joe Milton can't play. He's John Adams, Caleb Calhoun. We love visiting with John. Coming back on the other side, we've got a military general question, also some recruiting for John. I'm Dave. John, thank you as always, sir. You do a fantastic job. You're a great man.
Thanks, guys.
He's John Adams. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Coaches, would they make good military generals or would they just get everybody killed? Probably the latter. Stay tuned. Off the Hook Sports in 2 minutes after this.
Cab 4x4 STX, $45,985. 24 Ford Escape, $30,962. 24 Ford Maverick XLT, $32,720. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do, to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
He said nothing you people can't do.
Also available on offthehooksports.com.
Welcome back. Caleb has this idea that generals in the military should be coaches or coaches should be generals in the military. Caleb, I don't really understand it. And I want to go in blank. I want to go in ignorant, and not because it's the easy way out. It's just because it's one of those topics that's so just out of left field that I want to be able to retort frankly, honestly, and genuinely. So it sounds a little crazy, but okay, we'll go there. But first, it is time for This Day in Tennessee Sports History. What have you got? Please hit that like and subscribe button. If you haven't done that yet, we need to do that. Let's bring some more people on the program. Why? Because we're talking to the Vols today. It's media day, and we'll have an opportunity to interview people like, I don't know, Nico Maleava. We'll have an opportunity to interview people like James Pierce. So subscribe to the program, and you'll have that coverage coming this afternoon. I told you we'd have big-time announcements, and we have that now. More coming. All right, Caleb. So what do we got this day in Tennessee sports history?
It's a happy birthday, a happy 34th birthday to Shekinna Strickland, a Lady Vol star. She averaged double figures all 4 years she started at Tennessee from 2008 to 2012, 13.5 points total for her career, 6.5 rebounds, 76.8% free throw shooter, 33.9% three-point shooter, was a very good player out of Arkansas. Did not get what she signed up for when she committed to Tennessee. I'm sure she was committing to a 2-time national championship program. And I think that we obviously all know that there was an issue with Pat Summitt when she stepped in. I have great sympathy, Dave, for that 2008 Lady Vols recruiting class, because they obviously did not plan to deal with what they had to deal with when they took over. So I always want to give shout outs to those players when I can, even though they didn't ever win a national title or go to the Final Four.
And that's a real downer this day in Tennessee sports history, Caleb. I got to be honest with you.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm just...
Wow.
It's happy birthday to her, though. Happy birthday to Shekinna Strickland.
Yes.
Let's celebrate her, not just talk about the sadness.
A very serious chronic medical condition not only took someone's life, but it also affected some young ladies' college basketball careers. I mean, come on, Caleb. We got to get these a little more hype, a little more excited. It's football season, man.
Sorry. It's a bit of a light day.
If you need something after that, you can go to the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOK for 10% off. Promo code HOOK for 10% off. Just walk in and say, man, I heard this really downer story, so I need to get picked up a little bit. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. All right, Caleb, coaches as military generals. I want to get to that, but first, can we get to 4 downs? Because we like Josh Pate because he likes us. He's nice to us, and he likes to listen to the show. He, of course, is of 247 Sports, but he's almost created a brand on his own, and he had some thoughts on the University of Tennessee. It is 4 downs now, and it's brought to you by our good friend at Don Self State Farm, his office right there in Ooltewah. Here we go. 4 downs.
4 downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show. 4 downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Derek wants to hear a fall camp story. Should I share a fall camp story? Maybe I should share a fall camp story every day. We might.
All right, go ahead and roll. Let's go.
I'm not going to do it now. I'm going to go to Josh Pate. Do we want to pull up Josh Pate? But I do have a good fall story camp. All right.
Yes, let's set up what Josh Pate was saying real quick.
So you go ahead and set it up, and then I'll call out the downs. What do you got?
All right, so Josh Pate was talking about Tennessee and NIL, and this goes back to the recruiting they were doing over the weekend, which Dave says it's about culture. I say it's about NIL. Josh Pate, to his credit, says it's about both, but he's
way oversimplified that, but that's fine.
Josh Pate says it's about both. I will say that but what stood out was he had something about NIL that was intriguing to me. He said Tennessee has a, quote, sneaky good NIL. And here's what he means by that. What were we about to say? You held your finger up, Dave.
Well, no, go ahead, because I was going to do 4 downs, but I don't think we're going to. Go ahead.
Let's just play this real quick, see what he says.
If you're recruiting top-end players, they're getting money from anywhere they go. So the money, ironically, is not what pushes most of these recruitments over the finish line. It's the plan. Okay, Texas is brilliant at this. Oregon's brilliant at this. There are a couple other programs that are recruiting halfway decently right now that I think have a ways to go in that. Tennessee, though, is one of the sneakiest, well-put-together NIL operations in college football right now. Not just because they've got money they can spend, it's because they understand not just the A part, but the B, C, D, E, F, G part as well.
Okay, now, Josh Pate has a bigger platform than me right now. So when he says it, it carries a different weight. But I have been saying this, Caleb, for quite some time. I thought that Tennessee was ahead of the recruiting, the NIL recruiting curve, landing a guy like Nico. But I think they're every bit as much ahead of the recruiting curve in the way they're handling it now. And that's paying the Coopers and the Amari Thomases to stay. That's, yes, you get X amount, so you don't ever have to worry about going on a date if you're a Tennessee player, even if you're a 3-star. But you better show up and get on campus and show that you can play against SEC competition to get some real-time money. And if you're James Pierce, you can make $1 million. Yes, I agree wholeheartedly that Tennessee, and I agree with Josh Pate, is ahead of the curve. Every bit ahead of the curve as they were when we were saying they were ahead of the curve 3 years ago. They're even more ahead of the curve because right now you still have, and I'm going to use the example of Oregon. What do they feel like they have to do? Go spend a lot of money on a quarterback and Dylan Gabriel. That's money spent on a guy that you theoretically should already have in your program, that you have to spend a lot of money to pull over. Why is that guy not already in your program and you can pay him because you know the ins and outs of his game and how he fits your system, and there's no question? You want to pay the guys that stay, not the guys that come, more oftentimes than not.
And this is where Josh Pate said it was chess, not checkers for Tennessee, because they started looking like they were playing checkers in the sense of they opened the checkbook to get Nico Iamaleava. What we're realizing with Tennessee is that, yes, they opened the checkbook to get Nico. That's Josh Heupel's prize recruit. That's who he based. Is it fair to say Josh Heupel based the entire future of building his program around Nico? That was his plan from when he took over at Tennessee.
Yes, he needed a splash. I think the same way, not to the same extent, but Lincoln Riley needed a splash with Caleb Williams and taking him to Southern California. He made a splash by saying, look, I'm the guy. They needed a splash just to say Tennessee can still recruit with the top programs in the nation. Nico was that splash. I don't care how you got him. If you had to pay him $100 million, they needed that.
Yes, they needed that, not just to recruit other players, most importantly because Nico, again, you've never had a better fit for an offense than Nico Iamaleava for Josh Heupel. He had to see Nico and be like, oh my gosh, this guy's perfect.
And in all fairness, you didn't get the fringe benefits that you get with a lot of quarterbacks that are active recruiters. You know, Nico was kind of his own dude. He didn't go out and recruit. Didn't recruit as hard as George McIntyre does now, but not to sidetrack you. Please continue.
Yes, so that's the great part of how they started. Then you're right, they focused on keeping guys. They also focused their NIL resources. Now, this is another thing according to Payne. This is the one that we haven't seen yet, and we hope to see this soon. But they're reportedly, based on things Pate said, I'm kind of coming up with an ideology in my head that, Dave, I have a feeling Tennessee is getting players at a certain NIL discount because they're identifying them so early that they already have an edge on them in recruiting. Some of the understanding I have is that they're identifying kids like 3 years out right now on the recruiting trail. And they are scouting. They have an insane scout and identification and evaluation process going on in Knoxville right now.
Well, here's what happens. When you get hired, you have 3, 4, 5 years, right? You can just flop around and be average for 3, 4, 5 years. So you're able to recruit like that. You hit on some guys that you like more. There have been guys. Was Jalen Hyde a 3-star, I believe?
He was a 4-star, but
okay. So was it? There was a receiver. What was it? Cedric Tillman. Anyway, there have been guys you would agree that they went after early. You would have said, well, we'll see how they pan out because they're 3-star guys. Okay, and some of them have panned out, some of them haven't. But the side effort of all that is that you have those relationships now. And that's something that Derek Dooley never had. That's something that Butch Jones never had for different reasons. So you have an automatic advantage when you're recruiting whoever because you've known him since he was a sophomore. You also know if he's going to fit your culture. Whereas, just to use an example, Billy Napier right now at Florida is scurrying around to do what, Caleb? I mean, he almost has to scurry around to get a 4-star to make the boosters feel good about him keeping his job. That's the way recruiting is supposed to work. And forgive me for covering a guy that was one of the best of all time in Philip Fulmer and a head coach, right? But that's the way it's supposed to work. Some of these guys, some of these commitments at the University of Tennessee, probably 25, 30% of them should be no-brainers. They either grew up in your backyard, T. Higgins, or they have a lineage, they have a tie, or they just saw you and love you on TV for whatever reason, the offense you run. I mean, really, at least a third should just fall into your lap, right? Because you're Tennessee.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because of all the criticisms we've given Fulmer back in the day. Philip Fulmer had a unique ability. My high school at Ridgeway, he walked in and knew the head coach by name in Memphis on the other side of the state. He is, and it kind of comes with being the ultimate politician as a coach, which he was, the schmoozer of everybody. He knew how to do that very, very well. So where Fulmer could, am I right, if he could really walk into any high school he wanted to and just say, hey, coach, to whoever the high school football coach was, and they could strike up a conversation.
It helped that most high school coaches are oftentimes offensive linemen, because offensive linemen, I believe, as a unit, or for whatever reason, the smartest guys. I think, I don't know why, but other than quarterbacks, I typically think they're really smart. So Philip Fulmer walks in there as a former offensive lineman. He's like, I did it. I did what you want to do. I've achieved this level of greatness. But again, I look at Billy Napier and having to chase around one guy to win a PR war. And I don't know if he's thinking like that, but if he's not, it needs to be in the back of his head, because Caleb, that's the way Butch Jones kept people on his side for so long. And I heard a lot of bad things about Butch Jones early on, but he was still getting some recruiting licks, and that was keeping fans kind of happy. I mean, was he around a year longer because he had at one point the number 4 class? I mean, he had some recruiting victories. There's no question.
He won everybody over his first 2 years in Knoxville because of the recruiting he was doing. I mean, everybody. He got back-to-back top 5 classes. Rankings-wise, those are still the 2 best classes Tennessee has had since Philip Fulmer was fired. Not even close. And so he had everybody won over because of that. Heupel, now, the part I want to add to this is maybe they're getting NIL discounts on these guys. The question is coming because of the early evaluations. The question becomes, can these early evaluations pan out? Because whatever you want to say about Jeremy Pruitt, you mentioned Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman. He evaluated those guys. Tillman was actually kind of a throw-in, I guess, to get a Vegas pipeline, but he evaluated Jalen Hyatt before anybody did. And he went out and got Jalen Hyatt. Heupel's doing a lot of that. We don't know yet if those guys are going to pan out. I do think what they're doing, and this is the other selling point, and this is the whole selling point you talk about of players staying, Dave. Heupel's basically telling players, I think this is helping Tennessee on the recruiting trail. Look, there's a less than 20% chance you're one of those top 5 draft picks in the NFL, like a James Pierce. You're lucky if you're one of those. The truth of the matter is you'll have to develop and you'll have to work to get drafted. But if you have to do that, we can promise you money when you're a senior coming back and having to stay in college, whereas you'll have to weigh your options a lot more if you go to a place like Georgia, because they'll just ship you out the door to go for somebody else. And I think that's actually selling to players right now. To say that you will.
Why does Tennessee have to be nicer than other schools? Why don't you just ship them out the door and good luck to you, Mr.
Well, Moore? I don't think Tennessee's at a ship them out the door level yet. They haven't had they don't have a top 5 class on their roster right now. But what I'm saying is,
they've done it with quarterbacks.
They can ship out the door. What I'm saying though, Dave, is that they're promising players, and this is the BCDEFGHIJKL that Josh Pate pointed out, beyond just what they're offering them up front. They're promising them, if you choose to stay in college and you're productive, we can offer you this much when you're a junior. We can offer you this much when you're a senior. You can still continue to make money if you're not an early NFL draft pick. I know you want to be an early NFL draft pick. I know you want to come out early. Everybody does. Everybody wants to make money. But if that doesn't happen, and if you're still a productive player for us, we can promise you this amount of money. Look what we just promised Cooper Mays and people like that. And I think there's a lot of forward-thinking players that realize I may not be a top 5 draft pick. The money that's promised to me as a junior or senior in college may be relevant.
Okay. You got me thinking about a topic that bounced in my head last night. And no, I was not on any hallucinogens, if that's what you're concerned about, because this one's out there. Why in the world did Josh Heupel make sure to redshirt Nico Iamaleava last year? Thought about this? Have you thought that the revenue sharing's coming along? Have you thought that maybe a fantastically awesome, proven quarterback in the SEC is as valuable to the SEC or a team as it is to an NFL team? Could we at some point have a situation in which Tennessee's NIL can rival what the NIL is paying? Could that be what
NFL
Josh Pate is referring to?
Yes, that's absolutely what it is. I think Cooper Mays probably made more than what his base was promised to come back to Tennessee. You can tell me that if that's true, Dave, but I feel like, isn't the base in the NFL only 400,000?
No, the base in the NFL is 850. I was told not by Cooper that it wasn't 850, but it was pretty darn good. And I can tell you that based off Tennessee's pay scale, you would be looking at James Pierce. I don't want to get into specific numbers, being a 7-digit player. I can tell you that's the case.
So you're suggesting they redshirt Nico because they'll have the money to keep him around beyond what his. See, what the reason it's hard for me with Nico is Nico could be a top 5 pick, and that NFL top 5 pick money, I don't think Tennessee can pay that. Now, I agree with your overall premise because so many quarterbacks in college are so much more valuable in college than the NFL, and no, they aren't. I mean, if you were Nebraska and Tommy Frazier, you were worth way more money to play college than you were to go to the NFL, right? Given what you could do to a team. I'm not sure Nico's in that camp because I think NFL teams are going to want Nico badly.
Well, I will tell you this. They went out of their way to redshirt him. And I know, Meade, you're saying I thought they redshirted him because of the family. I heard that too. But the bottom line is I think the family is smart enough to know that, that this needed to be Joe Milton's team last year, and it wasn't time for Nico. Had he needed to play, and I remember the one game that Milton tweaked his knee, you could see that Nico's just bouncing up and down, and he's ready to play. I think that he would have gotten in there, and he wouldn't have redshirted had they had to play him. But this revenue sharing that's coming in, I mean, Caleb, here's the trajectory we're on means I'm not crazy for suggesting that by the time that Nico is a senior, they could offer him, or in this case, a junior with a redshirt year, that they could offer him as much as the NIL because the NFL, because the trajectory is firing up. Nico is getting $2 million a year. 5 years ago, he was getting $0 a year. I mean, the trajectory is going up so fast. So what's a year worth in 5 years from now when he has to, I know this sounds crazy, possibly sign another contract because NFL scouts have questions about his footwork or questions about this, and it's a tough quarterback class, and he might go the middle or late first round, or he might slide into the second. I don't believe any of this, Caleb. This is just devil's advocate, okay? What happens if Tennessee can offer him $10 million a year? And I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility in 4 years.
That's an interesting point. That's something to further dive into. Can colleges with revenue sharing offer more money than NFL? I'm not sure of that yet, but that's certainly a possibility.
The number I heard is each school is going to be mandatorily have to pay $23 or so million out of the chute. Now, the interesting thing is that it's at their discretion. Okay, so if it's at my discretion, yeah, I've got to take care of some former players, but am I going to give Tyler Bray as much as I'm going to give Nico if he'll come back another year? No, it's my discretion. Tyler gets a $50 gift certificate to Arby's.
First of all, people would be mad if you gave Tyler a $1 gift certificate to Arby's.
You do have to go back, and it does.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, go back some. So you would have to he does get a check.
Like, this is one of those, like, if you so much as recognize Tyler Bree, I will kill you. That's what some Tennessee fans were thinking in their mind because they despise him. But I get your point. Yes. It could rival in football. It'll never rival in basketball because NBA money is just too great. NBA money is just like way too great. But I could see it in football.
And it would also rival. It wouldn't rival. Tennessee would blow it away in your favorite word, culture. Because I've covered enough NFL, not a lot, but enough to know, Caleb, half those guys are miserable. They just happen to be big athletic athletes, and they happen to be good at football. But do they love it? No. And I've been around a lot of athletes, but in the NFL, it's so hard on your body. I think a lot of those guys are miserable. So they're going to be playing 18 regular season games by the time Nico gets there. That's a guarantee. The 18th game is going to happen. So would you rather play 18 games? You don't know where you're going to go in the draft, or would you rather be with your buddies if the money's even close to the same? And when I say close to the same, I'm saying half. I mean, what did the number one pick in the NFL draft get last year, Caleb? Do you have any idea? I mean, how matchable even would this number be? I don't know that it possibly is. I remind you that our good friends
4-year deals, $38.5 million. So about almost $10 million a year, $9.5 million a year.
Is that not a little bit closer than you thought? So Peyton Manning didn't have to worry about money because of his upbringing in his family. So he came back because college football was more fun. And I guarantee you Peyton Manning would say this to Nico. College football is more fun. Now, you're risking injury and all that, and Peyton's going to be open and honest. But that season, I guarantee you, was more fun than any season he had in the NFL. So if you could get it to $5 million a year and you're already at $2 million, is Josh Heupel thinking that he gets 4 seasons as a starter or even 3 seasons as a starter out of Nico Iamaleava? Because I didn't think that to start the show.
That's certainly possible. That's certainly very intriguing and very possible. It'll also depend on who the number one pick is. Peyton Manning didn't come back because he likes college. That's what he tells you guys. He came back because the Jets had the number one pick and he didn't want to go play for the Jets.
Which is probably a smart move, but you'd have to agree it was a little bit of both.
I think retroactively he loves it because he loved his college career. The way his senior year worked out makes it look like it was a better decision because he won an SEC title, should have won the Heisman, set every record possible. But I think the thing that swung it, if a better franchise has the number one draft pick after 96, I think he's going to the NFL.
I think it was a factor. I think if maybe he didn't have the same returning players that he had at Tennessee, he would have gone to the NFL. I think there are a lot of
I think returning players may have hurt him a little bit. It may have hurt the Tennessee case to keep him because remember, Joey Kent was gone. He was losing Joey Kent.
Defensively lost Terry Fair. It was Jeff Coleman, I believe, on the offensive line, or was he?
Wait, wasn't Terry Fair on the 97 team? I thought Terry Fair was on the 97 team.
Yeah, but he would have been on the 97 team. But
no, I'm saying why Peyton Manning coming after 96, his decision to go pro.
Don't worry about it. I've got my years completely messed up. Sorry. Apex Apparel Group Solutions. I'm telling you, Apex Apparel Group Design, they do so much more than get confused like I just did. I wrote a book about it, for goodness sake. A one-stop shop for all brand products. You can get your spirit wear there. You can get your schools wear there. Unique products to promote your business with unparalleled customer service. A full on-brand supply company called Tyler at 865-919-3001, 865-919-3001. Want to be sure and thank our good friend Don Self at State Farm. Customer service still matters. Everybody wants that lower rate, and I get that. But what happens when you need to make a claim? Don Self. Customer service still matters. For 40 years. They built their business on taking care of their customers. The greater Chattanooga area. Call 423-396-2126. 423-396-2126. So we do a detailed rundown, but I specifically told Caleb Calhoun that I did not want a detail on this because he mentioned it and I was like, ooh, that sounds exciting. So let's just do that. So my rundown from our 3:45 a.m. production meeting reads coaches as military generals. Coaches as military generals for 1,000, Caleb. What is that? What does that mean? Who's suggesting coaches should be military generals?
Here's the story. Dave and I don't get political, and we're not going to. But over the weekend, Donald Trump,
way to start a conversation, but here we go.
Yes, over the weekend, Donald Trump gave a speech where he said that he would talk about replacing generals with college football coaches and NASCAR drivers. And you saw both sides fight. Like the right is like, he was just making a joke. You can't say anything to the left because this is what politicians do for opposite parties. Feigned outrage. Like, how dare you insult our generals? All this, yada, yada, yada. Lost in the entire conversation is, I'm not going to say Donald Trump is wrong for saying whatever he might say about our generals. I'm saying he's wrong for thinking college football coaches could do any better because that implies that college football coaches, by and large, are smart, and they aren't. Okay? So I think that they are, even if you don't think generals are qualified for what they do, they're more qualified for what they do than college football coaches generally are for what they do. All right. So taking that into account, Tennessee has a unique situation here. They have a coach who was a general. And
that would be
General Robert Neyland.
Oh, the stadium guy.
Yeah, and he was leaps and bounds smarter than everybody else he was going against back in the 40s and the 50s and the 30s. So the question comes today, if you were in battle, which college football coach would you want leading you into battle?
Okay. Well, let's set that up as a poll question. And I'm assuming you're going to have 4 names for me. And it's brought to you by our friends at the Quality Tire Pros. The Eberle family has been serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brake alignments, oil changes, and more. All work is covered by nationwide warranty. Cherokee Blvd or online at qualitytirepros.com. qualitytirepros.com. Stop by that Cherokee location downtown and tell Bo that Dave Hooker and Off the Hook Sports said, hey, Bo. Well, the easy one is Nick Saban, but he's not coaching. So I'm assuming we're excluding him, correct?
Yeah, we have to exclude Nick Saban. So I'll do the other 3 coaches that are, I'll do the 2 multinational champion winning coaches right now in college football, Dabo Swinney and Kirby Smart.
It's not Dabo Swinney.
Wait, it's Dabo Swinney, Kirby Smart, Josh Heupel, or somebody else.
Nah, well, it's not. But it's not.
I think they compare.
Dabo Swinney doesn't inspire me. Am I missing something on Dabo Swinney? I think he was very fortunate in the time where he got a lot of talent because other schools around him were struggling. But do I think Dabo Swinney is a guy that I want to follow in a battle? No.
Well, here's Dabo and Kirby are different in this way. Yeah, because Kirby's kind of the new Nick Saban. Is that not? I don't mean. I know people are disagreeing with that with the discipline, but I mean the way he runs his program. It's Kirby's program, right?
Yes, and something that I think has been lost, the old pregame rah-rah speech, win one for the Gipper. I think that's been lost, and he's very good at that.
Yes, so Kirby Smart, here's the difference.
To me, he's based off what I know, it's Kirby Smart, and there's not a close second.
Well, here's the thing. There's 2 things when it comes to battle. There is caring about your life personally and caring about the mission. This is where Dabo and Kirby are different. Kirby's about the mission. Right, so that might mean sacrificing you, depending on depending on what your role is in the unit. Might mean your life is expendable for the larger mission. I think Dabo would care about the lives of every soldier in his unit. Is that fair to say?
So those are only 2 selections. So this is
and Josh Heupel.
Okay, so the best coach to lead you into battle would be Kirby. I want to win, and Dabo. He loves me.
Dabo. He cares about me.
Oh, my gosh.
And then Josh Heupel. Just say Josh Heupel.
Well, then everybody's going to say Josh Heupel.
So you're kicking off Josh Heupel. Oh, don't you know what? Throw in Nick Saban.
I'm not
Just
going to
throw it
in.
in.
I'm going to throw in those two because I tell you what I would prefer. I would largely prefer the Kirby Smart lead me into battle. Kill. Do
It
the
doesn't
best
care if you win or die. If you live or die, it's about the mission. You want
Yes.
that?
Yes.
You want to be treated like the pawn
Yes.
in a chess game?
Well, I would like to think I would be the Kirby. So what about you, Caleb? Which would you prefer to be?
I mean, I'm a coward, so I'd want Dabo. I'd want the guy that wants me to live. I'm sorry. Like, I want the guy that wants me to live, okay? Like, Dabo would want me to survive. But obviously, if you want a hype man to go in the battle, if that's what you need, Ed Orgeron is your guy to lead the military unit, right? Come on, guys, let's go. Go get him a fight.
You're right. And Nick Saban largely leaned on the strength and conditioning coach that he slips my mind, but he made the move to Georgia, and it was a huge get for the University of Georgia. Maybe you can help me on the message board. Scotty, was it Cochran, I believe? He was a very good strength and conditioning coach. And I've said this before. Tennessee, their strength and conditioning coach is very, very important in the amount of contact they have with the players. David said if Tennessee has a dynasty, would it resemble Bama, Clemson, or Georgia?
Actually, probably Clemson, because it would be quarterback driven.
But I believe Josh Heupel is soft and tough at the same time. Can I explain that for a second? Because they don't allow fighting in practice, which I think there's something to be said for a good old brawl every once in a while. It's a lot of thud practices, and it's not to the ground, which is in vogue. However, he's demanding in there. I've seen their schedules. Sometimes it's 6A to 7P, Caleb, of something they have to be at, whether it's film study, group meal, whatever the case may be. So I think he cares for you. So I think the easy way out is for me just to say Josh Heupel, but in a group, I think I'm more likely to win a championship, even though Dabo Swinney has done it. I'm going forward. He doesn't have Brent Venables now, who's at Oklahoma as former defensive coordinator. I believe that Tennessee has the best chance of winning a championship over Dabo Swinney, and my son has a better chance of being treated really well than maybe at Georgia, where he could get caught up in the churn.
No, I agree with you. And it's funny, that gets to the whole, like, Heupel's the best of both worlds with this topic we're on, where Heupel would actually, he would strategize well. Is that fair to say? Heupel would strategize for any battle possible, which is the main thing you need out of your general. And he cares about your players. The thing about Heupel is Heupel doesn't seem like a guy that can rile you up to get ready to go into battle. I'm sorry. It seems like it's all business and, like, thinking about the task at hand.
I've been told the same thing I was told about Hendon Hooker, that he can get you riled up, that he can be loud and vocal. But nowadays, everything's so insulated, we haven't heard it.
And also that can be overrated, because I'm just going to say it. Nick Saban is the George Washington of generals and coaches. George Washington was a very soft-spoken, calm, collected guy who, actually, Saban was a lot better at coaching football than Washington was in general. Washington listened to other people around him. But point being, Washington was a soft-spoken, calm, collected guy and kind of led with a big stick. I guess spoke softly, carried a big stick, that type of thing. That's how Nick Saban kind of was. And you know, I don't think Nick Saban ever got anybody riled up to go play a football game. Guys, we're going to go play real hard today. We're going to work real hard, do a good job.
The best coach to lead you into battle would be Kirby. I want to win. Dabo, he cares about me. So it sounds like the moral of the story is Dabo may care about you, Caleb, but that's really not going to matter if he's incompetent and gets you killed anyway.
I don't think he's incompetent, though. Okay, that's Butch Jones, okay? This is Butch Jones who would get you killed in battle.
He didn't care about you. He didn't care about you. He would kill you and everybody you knew for an SEC East title.
Butch Jones was eminently qualified to be a Union general in the first 2 years of the Civil War. Okay, those generals were terrible. No,
Did you like how I said
not the one you're
SEC
descended
East
from, Dave.
title?
Sorry?
Did you like how I said SEC East title? He doesn't even have to win the whole thing.
But you couldn't even win that.
That's what I'm saying. He'd kill
By
you
the way,
and your whole family.
And if you're in battle, you sure as heck ain't winning the life championship under Butch Joe. Sorry, bad joke. Bad joke, but
No, wait. But as far as pregame speeches, everybody tells me they're overrated. However, I will tell you this. I saw a pregame speech that was accidentally recorded, and this was before AI. This is last year. And I will absolutely tell you that I thought Kirby Smart gave a speech that would make you want to run through a wall. I think they're overrated. I think that Philip Fulmer had that in him. I believe that Josh Heupel has that in him. But you can't go out there and give a huge, monstrous pregame speech when you're getting ready to play UTEP, can you? I mean, the guys are going to know. They're going to have a feel for how big this game is. And if you're manufacturing a big speech, you can't do that. Ray Varner Ford, nice enough there in North Clinton to take care of you and our listeners. Be sure and mention to them that you heard about them on Off the Hook Sports.
Cab 4x4 STX, $45,985. 24 Ford Escape, $30,962. 24 Ford Maverick XLT, $32,720. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
All right, I want to remind you that what can people do when it comes to winning great prizes? Well, there are a couple of different things. Tomorrow, we will be giving away this helmet. The John Henderson autographed helmet. We'll be giving that away the end of the month, which is tomorrow, which is the first day Tennessee holds practice, a media day today. We'll have full coverage on that on offthehooksports.com. Also, with Hooker's Corner, a great way to keep up with recruiting, increased recruiting coverage there. Weekly prizes, plus we are going to include the Grade 8 Garmin Challenge. Get ready for Rick's Grade 8 Garmin Challenge, brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. Rick Terry Jewelry Design will provide a Garmin watch worth over $1,000 to be given away to one lucky listener. Now, you can be a free member of Hooker's Corner. You can be a free subscriber, and you are eligible. When we hit 8,000 subscribers, we'll pull a lucky winner out of the box. Now, Tennessee opens up camp. So we're just going to reset 4 downs because I'm just going to be honest with you, Caleb. May I just say that I pressed the wrong button earlier?
Sure, we can do that.
4 downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show. 4 downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Top storylines going into fall camp, and there's only one man that can properly set us up for that. It is Cooper Mays, Tennessee's center and first team All-SEC center. Coop, what should people do?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
All right. How about this question, Coop?
Coop here. First down.
Will the Vols find a featured back? Will the Vols find a featured back? We want your thoughts on the message board. Let's go. Yes, and I think they already have in Dylan Sampson, Caleb, but I know you disagree.
Yes, and so setting this up real quick for those who may not know, who may be living under a rock, fall camp officially starts on the first practice, Wednesday, July the 31st. And just wanted to make sure people knew that. But I think, yes, they will, but he is not Dylan Sampson because Dylan Sampson cannot be a featured back. He's not capable of it. He can't carry the ball 20 to 25 times a game. All you got to do is send an extra rusher on passing plays whenever he's in there, and you're going to sack Nico because Dylan Sampson will whiff on the block. I don't believe he's gotten better at all in the offseason, and I don't believe Josh Heupel. However, I do believe Peyton Lewis, who wasn't able to play in the spring because he was hurt, will absolutely ball out in fall camp, and that's why he'll become the feature back. Now, people are going to ask, because I'm going to talk about position battles later. This isn't a position battle thing. This is either Peyton Lewis works out or Tennessee doesn't have a feature back. Period. End of story.
Disagree. 2 words. Travis Stevens. Smaller back, And I believe Dylan Sampson is every bit as physically talented as Travis Stevens when he was asked to man the reins after Henry had moved on. Travis Henry had moved on to the NFL. Coop,
His heart was through the roof, though. Travis Stevens was one of the toughest players I've ever seen for his size.
Agreed. I've heard similar things about Dylan Sampson. No exaggeration intended. Coop.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
All right. Second down is this. The defensive back depth. There's a major overhaul there. I think we have a rough idea, and you and I agree for once. I'm kidding. You and I agree who the 5 starters we think will be. So go ahead and run those down. But depth is going to be key for 2 reasons, honestly. You don't know how some of these guys are going to perform in a high-pressure NFL stage, SEC stage. And you also are going to have injuries. You know that with the SEC, in the SEC, especially as oftentimes as Tennessee plays their strong safety in a box. So who do we think the top 5 will be?
Yeah, and I actually phrased this wrong as I thought about it. It's not as much about the depth for the defensive back as it is, are they better at defensive back this year? Because they sent 6 guys out. They added 3 plus the freshman in Boo Carter, plus other experienced guys getting better. So are they better and deeper? Because Heupel has hinted at it. My prediction is they are. I think they're going to have Jamad McCoy lock down one of the cornerback spots. He's one of the transfers. I think they're going to have Ricky Gibson lock down the other. He's a second-year player, so he should be much better, and he was already showing signs of being good. I think the Temple transfer, Jalen McMurray, is the Gabe Giuliani of this group. He's going to be the nickel in the group. I think Jacoby Thomas will lock down the free safety spot because that's why they got him from MTSU. He's the McAllen Castles of the defense this year. He's this year's McAllen Castles. And I think Boo Carter will lock down the strong safety spot as a true freshman, and he's that good. Then comes the depth. Andre Turrentine is still there. I'm a borderline thanks but no thanks to Andre Turrentine at this point, but he's still there. Christian Harrison and Jordan Thomas have experience as backup safeties. Jordan Matthews does have promise at cornerback. It's hard for me to believe a Louisiana kid isn't going to work out. You guys know I've never, ever lived in Louisiana my whole life. I just usually believe in those kids and how good they are.
I feel like of all those kids that you mentioned, one of them will make the major step of just not being one of the newest guys on campus. So if they get something from one of them, I believe, I think you'd want to put the over-under at 1.5. I think that you want to get 2 out of that group you just mentioned, which is the second tier. At least we believe it's the second tier. We're going to see what happens as camp opens on August 31st. Questions about camp brought to you by our friends at Asia Cafe. Treat yourself to authentic Asian Cafe. It's from the hand-guarded family secrets. It's fantastic. 5 locations to choose from. AsiaCafe.org, AsiaCafe.org. It's right down below. Click on that.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
Alrighty. Offensive line depth. We need to be talking about at least 2 guys that are pushing for playing time. And I'm using that word very carefully because I don't believe they're really going to push for playing time, Caleb. I don't believe Lance Hurd or John Campbell or Cooper Mays should be worried. But if a coach came out and said, boy, that fella there, he's really pushing for playing time, at least it means he's having a very good camp. And he's not going to go out there and start the first game, but you feel good about a little bit of depth. Tennessee doesn't say that. I know the little buzzwords during camp. Tennessee doesn't say that about 2 guys, Jackson Lampley, Boston Lang, whoever it is. The Vols have no depth on the offensive line headed into fall and the end of the season, and I'm afraid that's the case.
Yeah, I'm afraid that is too. They have 4 penciled starters who we know are good. We know Lance Hurd will be good at left tackle. We know Cooper Mays will be good at center. We know Javonte Spraggins will be good at right guard, and we know John Campbell will be good at right tackle. Those are all safe bets, right? That they won't just start, but they'll be good.
Yes.
We know they have a 5th penciled-in starter, probably in Andre Carrick, but we don't know if he'll be good because he sure as heck should give back all the money he made last year in NIL with the way he played at left guard.
I think you have to hope And a lot of people in the regional national media have just gone ahead and chalked him up to being a solid player. I think you have to hope that he's at best a B-plus player.
I agree.
If you get that, you're happy. If I told
You're
Josh
very
Heupel,
happy.
If I told Josh Heupel he's going to score 85 at the end of the year when you tabulate all, he'd go, I'll take that. I'm not going to even risk it. I'm not going to risk it for something higher.
Easily. Dane Davis is a known commodity as a utility player that you've brought up. That's kind of for a depth guy. You put your hope in Jackson Lampley and Vyson Lang. You really hope Vyson Lang emerges as the backup center to Cooper Mays, and you really hope Jackson Lampley can kind of emerge as that third guard in the rotation behind Spraggins and Carrick.
It's weird. If Dane Davis was just a few inches shorter, he'd be a lot more successful. It's just hard to get leverage when you're 6'7", 6'8". It's darn near impossible, especially in the interior.
Well, that's why they probably want Jackson Lampley to finally emerge, because I think they'd like Davis to lock down the backup tackle spot, whether it's the left or the right side, right?
Yes, I agree. What down are we? Third or fourth?
I believe we're at fourth, but there are two more questions, but we're at fourth.
Okay. So we had with the Vols find a feature back. I'm afraid to go here. You've got well here. Let's go.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
Is Nico ready to take the reins? We're going to sound like complete homers, but I would bet almost anything, mortgage, month's paycheck, whatever you want to call it, because of everything I've heard, not because of hope or anything else. But as Tennessee opens camp, this is barely even a question in my mind. It probably should be. He's only played one full game, and been successful in that against a subpar defense speed-wise. I don't care what they were ranked. I should be wary of Tennessee's quarterback position, but I'm not. I think that Tennessee is in good hands for the foreseeable future under Nico Eberle.
You should not be wary at all. Nobody questioned Nico Eberle's ability to hit the big play. The question was his accuracy. Nobody questioned his accuracy either. Excuse me. The question was his pocket presence and his patience. Those were the two things most on display in the Citrus Bowl. And now he's had he's had another round of 15 spring practices plus 2 conditioning programs. So he should not be in any concern of getting hit where he gets injured. That's always a possibility, but it was a bigger one last year. And now he's got a full fall camp. I think Nico, guys, I keep saying it. You are at the start. You are on the cusp of witnessing a historical run in Tennessee history and in college football history with Nico Eberle over the next 2 years. I'm very, very high. I'm very confident in saying that right now.
Yep, I tend to agree. I want to thank our friends at Neubert.
One quick thing.
Yes.
Before you do that, I also wanted to say one last thing is the biggest question is the most underrated issue with last year was health. Tennessee had an injury bug last year. Cooper Mays missed the first 5 games. Keenan Pili, Brew McCoy, and Dante Thornton all suffered season-ending injuries. Davis, those 4 things don't happen. I think there's a great chance Tennessee's 10-2 last year, not 8-4.
I agree, but I agree for a different reason. I think you've got to be really easy not to have that mindset and take it easy on everyone in fall camp, and then you're not as tough.
Yes, that is true.
You almost just, when I step to play craps, when I throw dice, I'm pretty sure I'm going to walk away a loser. But it's fun. So when you play football, at some point you're going to get hurt. But it's fun, and you keep it rolling as long as you can. Hopefully you're 32 years old until you get hurt. So, again, portions of the program brought to you by Asia Cafe. Treat yourself to authentic Asian cuisine, handcrafted from guarded family recipes. 5 locations to choose from, asiacafe.org, asiacafe.org. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This